So Uday is a passionate DevSecOps guy who loves React.js Firebase, JavaScript, and the No runtime. So he's going to talk to us today about security at the speed of DevOps. So feel free to take it away.
Is my screen visible at the moment?
Your screen is visible and we can hear you perfectly.
Right, perfect. Gents, thank you for taking your time on a Saturday. It's really interesting to see that while we stay at home, especially counting on a Saturday to come up is really interesting for me. So before I jump ahead, I really put in some time to make sure that I got the right picture on the very first slide, at least. That is to just give people that, hey, actually AppSec is stuff. It is not for the faint-hearted, you could say, but life is too short, so you need to enjoy your life. So I think I like this logo that OWASP has created for the cheat sheet series project, which is pretty handy to look at and talk about and around understand AppSec in general, that it is actually tough. But we are here today to debunk some of them, and there will also be a quick demo at the very end where I can show you that these are some things that I do. There are certain things that you can do to make yourself look like a genius maybe, or you can just make your life easier, I guess. So with that being said, the topic idea is security at the speed of DevOps. So we have to understand first that security is always a catch-up game, and there are many reasons behind that, and we will be looking at some of those today. Quickly about me, I work at Checkmarx. I'm a senior professional services engineer. I love Python, JavaScript, Firebase, Dota, Food, AppSec, whatnot. There are a few more things. Of course, I like movies as well. Now, a quick note of thanks to Imran, who reached out to me recently, and he has a practical DevSecOps training that he runs, and there is currently a discount if you're looking to upskill yourself. I might jump into the slides a bit faster. I might try to slow down here and there. So it's I'll try to cater to different audience speeds here, assuming the people who are really mature and are very well aware. This might not be new things for you. There might not be too many new things. For audience who are fairly new and unfamiliar, it's uncharted territories for them, then it's probably a lot of learning, a lot of takeaway. So there are a quick few things that I wanted to talk about. First was secure software development lifecycle, shift left, and how can we speed up our security journey itself as together. So this is a quick picture that just gives some information on secure software development lifecycle and their counterpart phases that go on in when someone mentions a secure development lifecycle. Basically, when you have software requirements, you have anti-requirements being generated, or basically you have a risk-based method to assess your requirements as your software requirements come in. This is something that not everyone does it around the world. There is probably a very limited audience that puts in efforts to actually do a risk-based weighting of the software requirements itself. Basically, this is where your shift left actually begins. So your requirements, having security requirements being met and examined till the very end. As you go on forth until to build your software, there are different phases. The design phase is where you do paper hacking exercises or threat modeling. During coding phase, or when a developer loves being the code monkey, that's when you have static analysis being performed usually. This is also the time where developers can search for anti-patterns, figure out certain weaknesses in the code, and then come back and fix them quickly as before the product actually releases, matures, and goes to the market. And then there are several different testing phases until the deployment of the product itself, which are the security counterparts. These involve manual testing phases such as penetration testing or ethical hacking, as people would like to say it. Also, there is some amount of dynamic time spent on dynamic analysis, basically your runtime examination of, say, a web application. So you have software requirements that come in, and then finally you release a product. Between these, you have different phases. Each phase requires vetting of security. Now, Each time when you introduce security as part of the curve, it means you're slowing down the speed in which you can reach the market. So as you slow down, it means your competitor is much ahead of you. So that's one way of looking at it, but that doesn't give us an excuse to not look at security or ignore security. So the idea is, how can we find this middle ground? So even though we start very early, shift by shifting left and trying to vet our security requirements as part of the software requirements being introduced, it becomes a bit of a challenge here because there are many phases in which security is being introduced. Some of them could potentially be bottlenecks and so on and so forth. So in reality, we are trying to move from what we are seeing in real world as a web application to trying to vet the security requirements at the very beginning itself. The hypothesis is it is more efficient to have higher quality and you have clear competitive advantage over your competitors technically, but this is yet to be time tested. So shift left is basically a great buzzword. That's something that has that has been sold to us all, and it is true. It is true. You need to move early, but at the same time, you have to find some middle ground here, because moving too early or moving too late is always a problem. Too late, you have problems in your software, maybe malicious actors start taking advantage. Too early, you introduce a lot of bottlenecks. So it's essential to find some middle ground here. So you need to start at some point, but not too early, not too late. There are some articles, some really interesting articles. One notably from my employer, Checkmarks. I have to be honest, it's a very relatively new article on why shift left and DevOps is really a shift center, and also securing DevOps. What does it mean in our context? So we were looking at earlier all the stages. So I'll give a quick summary here. So let's say someone gives us a requirement saying, I need you to build an app. And the quick question also comes out saying, I need my app to be secure. So as a developer, your first question should always be around, what do you mean by secure? Secure against what? Against malware or state-sponsored attacks? So that basically clarifies a lot. So are you going to build the most secure app, or is it safe enough to use? Or do you want to do something that is, just basically meets the requirements? So I've just broken down that word here, build me an app that resists common everyday attacks. A degree of confidence saying that I can use my app every day and it is going to work as expected and anticipated, regardless of attacks coming in and out. Should not be accessible outside of my home. Makes sense, because it's a sensitive app, which I don't want anyone to access the information content within this app outside my home. And finally, you can say I broke the requirement down into no third parties. So potentially by that, I'd mean to say there is no third party communication. So there is no transfer of cookie or advertisement coming in, such that people are aware what I'm doing at home on my own application. So removal of third parties, basically privacy, addition of privacy. Now, basing these, I have a strong requirements or anti-requirements against the software that I want to build to consider them as secure or not secure. So it's basically a thought process where you introduce security as a first-class citizen, but really early. So that's stage 0. And I've left out some Dilbert comics. So if you haven't ever read Dilbert comics, and if you're interested in software security, I think you should start reading the Dilbert comics around software development, software engineering, software security in general. They're fun. They're a good way to get around and understand what are the common assumptions that people make. For instance, like blockchain, and everyone wants to have their software start working on blockchain, which is ridiculous in a way. So that's pretty much stage 0 on software requirements. Stage 1, paper hacking. This is pretty much threat modeling. I'll move really quickly here. So my favorite threat model, there are a couple of ways in which you can build your threat modeling exercises. My favorite is Microsoft Stride. So there's 6 different items that I have to look for, 6 different properties basically across the application. spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, elevation of privileges across 1, 2, 3 different levels. What it means is, hey, is my application vulnerable to denial of service? Or is my user interface, whichever I build, an Angular or React, is it vulnerable to denial of service? Is there anything else like a database component that could be prone to denial of service? So when you go from top to bottom, you cover a great degree of detail from between level ones, 2s, and 3s, almost as much as to a process level on an operating system. Now, stage 2, code monkey, this is usually where developers love and have all the fun, right? So they write a lot of code, they enjoy some really interesting engineering problems, they finally end up producing a solution, which is the value that you're looking for. But this is also the opportunity for developers to start start using code scan tools as they write code, scan as frequently as possible, fix anti-patterns as early as possible. There are a bunch of tools on the web that you can use, and there are some really popular commercial tools that you can use as well. I've just set out a few items here. I would encourage you to go ahead and do your own research. This is not an endorsement. Stage 3 is where you test your applications for runtime analysis. This is where you try to check if how is the web page working, and is it prone to any kind of attacks? Or how is my web service working? Can someone tamper my web service and do something nefarious, exploit my app maybe? There are a bunch of tools again on the internet, and this is where you should be putting your efforts. As soon as you finish development, you should be moving into the DAST or IaaS space, quickly testing your tool. Now, this is something very commonly seen and practiced across the industry, but for awareness sake, this is something that you should be doing on a cadence, basically. One of the most common tools would be, say, OSApp, which is pretty much free to set up. Start shooting around on your web services or web application, find vulnerabilities, fix them, rinse and repeat. Now, stage 4, Hunger Games. This is usually, I've called it as Hunger Games here. That's not actually the intent, but this is where you perform penetration testing. Now, level 0, you have performed some kind of vetting on your requirements, software security requirements. Level 1, you have bumped up, you've done paper hacking, basically architecture review and so on and so forth. Level 2, level 3, you have some automated tools that are trying to find vulnerabilities. Now, tools are there always to help us solve certain problems. They're not perfect because human beings build them, and they're prone to errors, and software by nature is very different. It is not just stuck with these patterns. Their software is built around for human use, basically. Say, for instance, bank. So bank can have pages that human can look at and understand, whereas a tool would not understand, hey, this is an accounts page, or this is a taxpayers page, things like that. So this is where a penetration tester comes in, tries to understand the application, or completely break the application. Maybe empty out bank accounts as put in the picture here. But usually penetration testers' intent is never to cause harm, but rather to test for weaknesses only. And stage 5, ASVS. So ASVS is from OAS Application Security Verification Standard, which is pretty much going to be what we're looking at for remaining next of our talk. So the whole idea to talk around all of these stages was to so on and so forth, just make sure all of us are comfortable on what I'm trying to demo as well. And of course, there are a lot of items when it comes to looking at ASVS, the Application Security Verification Standards, starting from stage 0, what we call as software requirements, the threat modeling phase, so on and so forth, until the verification and assurance phases that ASVS mentions. I would encourage you to go ahead, read about ASVS when you can, as you can. 3 different levels are available on ASVS. Level 1 means your application is connected onto the network, which means if you have an application which is connected up to any network, you're supposed to do certain things to secure it, depending on the business context or the financial value that the app contains, or maybe sensitive information. And level 2 and level 3, so on and so forth, are increasing levels of severity in terms of degree of security, a higher degree of security and assurance. Now, the idea for ASVS is rinse and repeat. Say if you have 130 items to look at and verify, maybe in the first few sprints on your software development cycle, you can only do, say, 10 items, maybe 20 items. You rinse and repeat, and you fulfill all the items, then you reach a maturity level. So that's where OS SAM, or software assurance maturity model, comes in. You try to verify your software for assurance. Once you complete first degree, you automatically go to the second degree, you complete your second degree, and then you reach the third degree, which means it takes time for your software to mature out. You can't get a really secure app and at the very get-go. It is theoretically not possible to have that unless you're willing to spend a lot of money. So here is what I've done in my demo. I have only a few items, and most of them are pretty much mocks, or close to mocks basically. So I have threat modeling data for one sample application, which I've put in together. And then I have SAST and SAST results just copied back into DAST, the IAST basically. Let's jump straight forward there. So this is how my screen looks like. As I just mentioned about ASVS, or the Application Security Verifications standard, which is broken down into several domains. Now you can see that I have different cards on my screen. Basically, each card here is a different domain. So you have one, which is the architecture, design, threat modeling, basically the first stage that we have mentioned, so on and so forth. And then you can have authentication that is being usually checked across your using tools like, say, check marks or OSZAP during the runtime phase, and so on and so forth. So you can have several items that can come in and be part of your verification for specific domain. All of these items are pretty much provided through ASVS. So to populate these cards, what I'm doing right now is pulling data straight away from GitHub. There is a JSON schema that OWASP provides, or there is existing data around what ASVS should have for each of these domains. I've just populated those questions and answers here. The only thing that I'm doing is I'm always by default calling 5 items as vulnerable in my case, although there might be a variance of measurement each time. So I can quickly have a look and see that for level 2 of ASVS, or second degree of maturity for an application, I'm interested in looking at items for architecture. So interestingly, I have a threat model result. So in this case, I would straight away go ahead and jump to my threat modeling results and see what is going on. So I have, in my case, my simulation says my previous threat modeling had more chances of me being hacked versus my second simulation, basically. The second simulation being in green and the previous in blue. So if you're a DevOps engineer, if you're deploying applications every day, or if you have daily releases, weekly releases, so on and so forth, start constructing threat models. Take AppSec personal's help. Start using more time to invest so that you can construct threat models, observe the data, and start seeing where are you going. So in my case, in 2 runs, obviously this is a fictional app. I can see that there is a different change in the application's paper hacking, basically, or the threat modeling. I have denial of service as a risk item that is reduced from certain number of points, roughly around 35 or 30 points, reduced down to 10 points. Now, these numbers are basically scaled down numbers. However, this gives me a better picture as I go on. I look at a specific application day by day basis, saying, hey, where is my application today? How is it doing in terms of security? So as you keep releasing, you can continuously see your improvement. So I think the idea around paper hacking exercises, try to measure your maturity from the very get-go, from the very early on and onwards. Now I'll quickly come back to the cards, the ASVS cards that I have. So the idea here is, hey, I've implemented 37 controls, say roughly out of the 42 here. So it means that, I have maybe 5 more items to catch up. So in my case, I have the static number 5, but The idea is you cannot have a fully mature application from the very get-go. So start measuring yourself from when possible and try to fix them as you can. And you don't want to be stuck down with solving hundreds of different vulnerabilities. Rather, you can pick a domain, solve a domain, move forward. That way, when you rinse and repeat, you don't have to work too hard. Now I have just some quick information here saying SAST and IAST or DAST basically, which pretty much have the same information here. The intent here is to quickly say that, hey, my application have cross-site scripting. I do not sanitize data, so there is a potential for exploitation to happen. And also my default password is, you know what, admin. So it hasn't really changed. So the admin is pretty much existing today. And on top of this, I have some information saying that there are some high severity, low severity, and medium severity vulnerabilities, so on and so forth, with some little description at the very top. The idea is if you have different applications, if you have, say, 20 different applications that you work day in, day out, or maybe in a given time frame, start to correlate this information around the code analysis, around the runtime analysis, and also the third party. So typically in a React app, you would expect yourself to see at least several hundreds, if not thousands, of libraries being used in the project. So let's quickly jump into that example here. I call my app as shift left, and this is something many people are familiar with. You have alternatively commercial tools which offer you the same capabilities as well. So I have roughly n number of packages and I have 0 vulnerabilities found, which is great. So I've been focusing on building my app without any third-party dependencies, but the app itself is broken functionality because of using, latest and greatest possible, which is a plus and minus. So yes, sometimes it is very common because of compatibility issues. Developers would continue to use, say, vulnerable libraries, but you need to know the reason why you want to have a vulnerable library. Now, in my case, of course, the only user of this application is just anyone connected onto my Wi-Fi, which is fair enough. But the idea is today I know my code analysis results and IAS results here, which are pretty much mocked out. And I also know in which domain am I performing good. Based on these results and based on the threat modeling results, I can then quickly correlate and say, okay, I'm improving the app security from wherever it is to wherever I'm going to tomorrow. So it's a measured and a very meticulous way of saying, okay, you're actually improving the application. Where are you improving the application? What is making the difference? So in short, when you continue to collect data from your automated tool sets, say for code analysis using, say, checkmarks or Coverity or Veracode, whichever it might be, or your IS tools like, say, Rapid7, again, checkmarks, Seeker from Synopsys, so on and so forth, and third-party analysis tools from, say, SNCC, check marks, and so on and so forth, then you start to have a better view around your application. Now, all you're left out is with conducting threat modeling. The quicker you start conducting threat modeling exercises and start correlating that data, the faster your maturity curve for your application improves. So in short, what we are looking at so far is for all my apps, I want to look at secure coding exercises. I want to build up some standards and checklists. Then I also want to conduct some integration tests, unit tests, and penetration testing along during the runtime. And then finally run some automated tools such as tests. So basically you have a full length coverage and you rinse and repeat, you improve your maturity. That's pretty much the idea. Now, obviously, most of the content that I'm putting here is personal opinion around, specifically around shift left. Can I shift left? And I think it's a philosophical question to answer, really, because today shift left is a buzzword. I would say shift left is possible, but not really possible. You have to really stick to shift center. And the logic is, how far can you shift left? How early can you start doing security? The early you start doing security, the bottlenecks start increasing. So your speed to delivery is pretty much hurt, and this is how businesses do not operate. Whether it be me personally running a business in the future, maybe, or any business in general, speed to market is key, and speed to market is essential. Unless you have a lot of time in the world, you can sit at home and be a potato couch, I guess. But uh, otherwise, speed to market is really essential. So that's where you want to just sit in the you need to achieve a comfort zone, and that's where you try to achieve the best of both worlds, basically the speed of DevOps and also security, meeting the needs and demands. And that's pretty much all from me. I'll leave it open for questions now.
In there. Thank you, Uday. That was an awesome talk. We were listening to it, and it's good to see trying to bring those components of development and security together. It's obviously really important to make sure that we do that moving forward, because I'm sure everyone's seen examples, and obviously our bottom right-hand logo at the moment is evidence of that, of how security and development can go wrong. So thank you very much for running us through that. That was awesome.